Greetings, YouTube. My name is Tyler, and I'm nice and cozy on my sofa. This is going to be my week 3 Bookopoly September vlog. It is the 16th of September, I believe, Friday afternoon. I'm feeling pretty lazy today. I got my flu shot and my COVID booster yesterday, so my arm is pretty sore. So I ended up waking up pretty early this morning just because I could not get comfortable enough to sleep. And I didn't think about it, but I typically sleep on my left side, but I'm right-handed. So I got my shots in my left arm, so I could use my my normal arm while going about things, but did not think about how that would make sleeping much more difficult. Anyways, it's not too bad. My first booster to the third shot, whoa, that took it out of me. I had a fever and I was just not feeling great after that booster. This time it's mostly just a lot of soreness. I had lymph node swelling and just kind of tired. But with that being said, I did manage to finish a book. So I finished Gudetama, Mindfulness for the Lazy. This is a little comic book that I started today and finished today. It's fine. I'm going to give it 3 stars. It has a very children's book quality to it, where it's trying to teach you a lesson, I guess, how to be mindful. But it's not actually a useful resource. I feel it feels very surface level, and I didn't know what to expect from this. It just was fine. It was fine. It kind of reminds me of those children's books that are trying to teach children how to deal with their emotions, or a new sibling joining the family or something like that. Anyways, that's the vibe of it. It was 3 stars. I'm going to drop this off, and the Without a Prayer book that I finished last week, I'm going to drop those off at the little free library in my neighborhood. So, yeah. I will also say I started Capitalist Realism. That book is very dense. It's not bad. I've highlighted a ton. I've only read 10 pages. But it is very, lots of big words and complex sentences. And it's not necessarily difficult to read, but it just takes, effort and focus to read. But this first chapter I'm in is kind of, meditating on and talking about the concept that it is easier for people to imagine the end of the world rather than the end of capitalism. And so it's just kind of talking about that concept, and it's talking about a movie that kind of highlights that concept, and just things of that nature. I told you I'm tired. I think I'm probably just going to keep reading that at a slow pace because it's only 82 pages, so I don't feel rushed, and just keep hoping for the audiobook to check out to me. So there's that. I also started The Gathering Dark, which I'm enjoying so far. The 2 stories I've read were 3.5 and 3 stars, but they're easy enough to read, and it's not bad per se. The second story was by Chloe Gong, who I know has a full novel that people like. These Violent Delights, I think, is her book. And reading this short story, I can kind of see why people like that book, but it's just not the writing for me. So there's that. Anyways, I'll probably keep reading more of this today just because it's short stories, so it's easy to pick up and put down. If I'm feeling less tired, maybe I'll start adverbs. I don't know. But I think I'm going to take a nap now. Especially because I've finished editing and I've already exported Monday's vlog. So my weekend work time will mostly just be creating a thumbnail and uploading it to YouTube. So I don't have a lot to do on that front. So anyways, I will talk to y'all later. Bye. Greetings. It is September 18th and I haven't finished anything, but I thought I would do a little check-in. It's Sunday and I haven't finished anything since the Gudetama book that I read in one sitting. I might start adverbs today. We'll see how the day goes. The thing is just yesterday my husband went out and bought an Xbox, and I have a feeling that I'm going to end up spending way too much time today playing House Flipper, because I've wanted to play House Flipper for a very long time, and now I can play House Flipper. It's going to be one of those things where it's going to be like, I'm going to immediately latch in onto it and want to play it constantly, or I'm going to realize it's more complicated and complex than I am willing to deal with. So we'll find out soon enough. So there's that. We officially adopted Fable. She's outside with Ryan right now, so you don't get a video clip, but we have officially adopted her. We'll be keeping the name Fable because she seems to have finally started to respond to it slightly, and we don't want to change that on her. So yeah, and she's slowly starting to open up, become a little more independent. I mean, she's always been independent, but I mean in terms of like not hiding away independent, but like exploring independent. So that's kind of the update for now. Hopefully I actually finish some books this week. We'll see what happens, I guess. All right, bye. Hello, it's the same day. I've just changed my outfit. I did a Bookopoly roll because I desperately needed an audiobook. The 3 books that I'm currently reading, I finally started adverbs. They're just not the compulsive reads I was hoping for. I was really hoping adverbs was going to grab me from the jump, and it was going to be something I wanted to physically read and like wanted to keep picking up and reading. Unfortunately, it's not that. It's not bad, it's just not what I'm needing right this moment. I really need something compulsive. But like it's just not that, and my desire to physically read, like my eyeballs do not want to do it. So I needed an audiobook desperately. So I rolled for Bookopoly. I landed on Features a Death, which was like not the greatest prompt for what I was trying to achieve, but I did find an audiobook. As you know, I like nonfiction audiobooks, so that's what I was looking for. And I ended up choosing Scoundrel by Sarah Weinman. How a convicted murderer persuaded the woman who loved him, the conservative establishment, and the courts to set him free. So that is what I'll be listening to for the next couple days. I look forward to being able to read but not having to use my eyes. It's been a while since I've gotten this long without having an audiobook on the go. As of, I don't know, since I really figured out my stride with audiobooks, I usually have like one going basically at all times. Maybe I take a couple days off if there are some physical books that I'm finding to be very engaging, but usually I have something going that does not require only focusing on the book. So I am looking forward to being able to do my cross stitch or play some video games while reading. I will talk to y'all in a few days when I finish this audiobook probably, and hopefully I'll finish one of these physical books this week. Fingers crossed. I have 5 stories left in The Gathering Dead, so I need to start reading more than just one a day. Anyways, I will talk to you later. Bye. Hello, people. It is Monday, September 19th, and I'm just doing another check-in because this vlog has been very boring because I have just like gotten nothing read. I am not having a good time with The Gathering Dark. It is very YA, and all the authors seemingly, or like a vast majority of the authors, seem to be YA authors, and I did not know that. There were 2 like very low 4-star stories, and I have 2 more left, but I just finished reading like a 2-star story and I'm just tired. So I have like 40 pages left that I will probably do tomorrow because I don't want to read this anymore. I started the audiobook. I'm like an hour and a half or 2 hours in. It's okay. I don't think I'm gonna love it. I think I've definitely dove too far back into true crime stuff. I'm not finding the stories to be, or the books to be, as like satisfying as I'm hoping for. Granted, right now I'm still in the beginning, so it's just the setup of telling me this case. So maybe as we get further into the story of Edward Smith, I think is what his name is, when we get further into his story, when he starts getting involved with the conservative media, I might feel a little different as we're getting more like analysis, maybe, or hopefully. But I definitely need to like back away from the true crime stuff because I just cannot enjoy it the way I used to. I need there to be something else going on in these books. This is like the 3rd or 4th true crime book where I'm just kind of like, so yeah, I think that really, I will say this experience has kind of highlighted to me, I really have kind of moved past my true crime era. Really the only place I am still like actively consuming true crime narratives are podcasts, and those tend to be like exploring something, and they also tend to be like political in some way, or they tend to be like unsolved mystery sort of things, or like scammer type deal, not so much like violent crime so much. So yeah, that's kind of where I am. I still have the Columbine book and I will read that at some point, but I don't think I'll be reading it this year, probably. It probably will have to wait until next year because I'm just feeling worn out with it, and like it's totally my fault. And this was like a rabbit hole I kept pushing myself down, and just kept thinking like these are going to be things I enjoy, and they're just not anymore. Kind of in the same way the thrillers, where I keep picking up thrillers thinking this is going to be something I like, and you know, not really liking it as much anymore. That's really all I have to say about that. I should be finishing The Gathering Dark tomorrow, like I said, so there should be a review check-in tomorrow. And honestly, that might be the only book I finished this week, because I haven't read any more of Adverbs. Capitalist realism is still going very slow. Yeah, and I don't know how much of Scoundrel I'll actually end up getting read. So yeah, we'll see. So if this vlog ends up being very boring, I apologize. Yeah, I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Bye. Hello. It is September 20th and I have finally finished a book. The book I finished was The Gathering Dark, which is an anthology edited by Tori Bovalino. I talked about how much I loved the cover of this. However, I did not enjoy reading this. So this is titled An Anthology of Folk Horror, and I'll start there. I don't think I know what folk horror is, so it is possible that like maybe folk horror is not a genre for me. Like maybe that's something I don't enjoy because I don't know what it is. So part of that might have been my issue with this. The other part is it seemed like a good chunk of these authors write YA, and basically every story in this felt very, very YA. Just lots of like teen characters in high school dealing with whatever's going on in these stories. There was not a single 5-star story in here for me. The closest one was called Truth or Dare by Alex Brown. That was 4.5. I would say that's one that I like wanted to keep reading. And then there were 2 4 stars. So yeah, I think another part of the issue I had with this is these short stories were on the long end for me. Overall, I want a short story to be quick and snappy. All of these, except for like 1 or 2, were over 20 pages. I think there were multiple 40-page stories. Definitely like multiple in the 30 pages, in the 30s. And it's just like too long for what I want in a short story. It just is. When I am reading, I've talked about how I like something quick paced, plot forward. So these longer short stories where they're trying to build more detail like tend to not work for me because I'm not going to get the quick overall pace of a book in a short story if it's packed with details, if that makes sense. So yeah, unfortunately I didn't like this. I did rate all of them as I was reading, and I did the math and it came out to 3.25 on the nose. And usually I only do half ratings, to be quite honest. And if I do that, it gets rounded up on Goodreads. I didn't do that. I rounded it down to 3 because I like absolutely just could not justify giving this 4 stars because this was like, it felt so long. It was such a struggle to read this collection of stories. It was under 300 pages and I just like struggled so much to force myself to read these. So like, I'm sure these authors are great. It's just what I'm looking for in a story was not provided in these, and maybe that's genre, maybe that's that they're YA authors, you know, maybe it's just like they write a different type of story than what I like when I'm reading. So yeah, but unfortunately this was not a win for me. I'm kind of upset that I paid full price for this on a whim. Those are my thoughts on this. Ooh, the mailman's passing. He's probably gonna look at me like, what are you doing? Otherwise, I'm gonna hopefully finish Capitalist Realism soon. I would like to finish that in this vlog, but that is dense. And I'm hoping I finish the audiobook too. And I think that would put me at 4 books this week, which is the pace I've been keeping. I am not gonna roll after this book because I just need to work on the shit that I'm struggling to work on. I think the rolls are gonna slow down here because I don't really want to carry over forced TBR books into August. Nope. It's not even August now. I don't want to carry them into October. I want to read what I want to read in October. And I'm hoping I can get some better reads with these last couple rolls here through September. Anyways, I'll let you go. Depending on whether I finish anything or not, stats may be coming up soon, or reading review or book review in some capacity. Okay, goodbye. Hello, it is still September 20th, and I finished another book. God bless. I finished Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher, I believe, and I gave this 3 stars. This was like a difficult read. It was, I am very out of practice. I have not been to college in a very long time. I have not read stuff like this in a very long time. I'm out of practice. I spent so much time looking up words in this book. This was like the longest 82-page book I have ever read. It was so difficult. I do not think I fully grasped this book. There was stuff that was very interesting to me, and like I had some understanding of what was being said, but there were parts of it where I was just like, it was completely over my head. I didn't even know where to start. I mean, there was a lot of referencing of other political scientists, question mark, Marxist, question mark. I don't know who these people are that he was referencing. So there was a lot of conversation within this world where where Mark Fisher was referencing and adding on to scholarship from other scholars, where I felt like I personally was missing the context, but I wasn't gonna go read these other people's papers and books just to understand this book. Like I said, I highlighted a ton of stuff in here. The stuff that I understood was good. However, I will say there were like 2 chapters in here that really talked about like mental health. I do not disagree that late stage capitalism has profound effects on people's mental health. And I do think that increasing mental health, levels of distress in people's mental health, can partially at least be contributed to capitalism. Like, I agree with that. I do agree with that. The way that our governments have, well, I mean, America, I guess I can't really speak to other governments necessarily. The way our government abandoned people during COVID and literally used people's lives to grease the wheels of business and profit and capital, very much highlights how much they do not care for people. However, the way some of it was talked about just left me feeling a little bit icky as a person who struggles with mental health. I can't quite put it into words because it wasn't like necessarily like pull yourself up by the bootstraps narrative, but it did kind of sometimes give me those vibes of like, it's fake. Like, mental health is fake. It is just all capitalism. And like, I don't think that is what the author was going for. But some of it just felt that way and made me feel a little bit gross. I mean, it talked about how big pharma, I don't think that was the phrase they used, but that's, you know, common colloquial phrase for it. Big pharma is just like shilling SSRIs to people instead of addressing systematic issues. And yeah, I think it would be great to have more systematic solutions to people's mental health. I do. I think that would be wonderful. However, it felt like it was coming off as like SSRIs don't work and they're just trying to make money out of it, but SSRIs do work. We may not understand why necessarily. You know, there is still research going into why SSRIs help people with depression and anxiety. But I don't know, it just made me feel icky because I do recognize that pharmaceutical companies are evil and like they do profit off people, and I don't think healthcare should be a for-profit business. So like there are these things I agree with, but like the way it was addressed just felt I don't have a better word for it than icky. It made me feel icky. I do not think necessarily that this author is trying to make that argument that mental health is like fake or that SSRIs don't work. But that was something I struggled with in this book, especially because they talked about it frequently. There was like 2 chapters necessarily that was like talking about that, like mental health in general, but like also in relation to schools. I will also say one of the things I struggled with in this was the author is British, so a lot of the contextualizing of these concepts were contextualized within British like school systems, universities and colleges, and things. It like even like it was talking about political parties, and I just like don't know a lot about British political parties or the schooling system. So that made it difficult to grasp also for me as like an American. And I'll say there were also parts of it where I felt uncomfortable with the concepts being put forward about like individualization and conformity and things like that. And I don't necessarily think that uncomfortability, I don't think that's the word. I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing. That felt more like me wrestling with my own, what's the word I'm looking for? My own internalized capitalist, I guess, like as a person who's only known like neoliberal capitalist society, yeah, I like having 100 billion choices in some ways, and in creating a better society, I might have to lose some of that. We might all have to lose some of that. Near the end, it talked about how with climate change in particular, we might have to make the choice of having less and having more scarcity, and the decision will be whether we make that choice for ourselves collectively. So like humanity decides to protect and save the environment, we won't have X, Y, or Z. Or if it will be mandated to us through authoritarian means. So it's I obviously like am thinking about this book a lot. Like I have talked about this way longer than I could have anticipated. I think I probably would have really enjoyed like having this as a class reading in college and then unpacking it with a more learned professor who could explain some of the things that I did not understand. But overall, like I'm giving it 3 stars, but I obviously have a lot to wrestle with, think about. I don't think it's a bad thing that, separate again from the mental health issues, that there was stuff that I had to wrestle with and confront within myself that I didn't even realize. I don't know. I have rambled about this so long, I do not even know if this will be coherent or if anyone will care. I obviously had a lot of thoughts and feelings about this book, and I still only gave it 3 stars. Mostly because it made my head hurt and it was really hard to read. Is that a terrible thing to only give it 3 stars? Maybe, I don't know. Anyways, I did roll and I landed on Chance, which is basically like you're supposed to pull a random card that has books on it and you read that book. I basically treated this as a mood read because I desperately needed a mood read. I decided on The Long Walk by Stephen King. I talk about this a lot more in my roll video, roll 10, so I'll try and keep it quick and short here. I have rarely had a success with a Stephen King book, but this came up a lot when I was like doing Hunger Games and Battle Royale stuff. This was like kind of inspiration for The Hunger Games alongside Battle Royale. So I've been intrigued. I've wanted to read it. However, if I'm not vibing with it, I have no problem DNFing this because I have only ever liked one Stephen King book that I have read, and that is Carrie. So we'll see. If I end up not liking that and I DNF it, I'm going to read White is for Witching, which I read the summary of that also in the roll video. This seems to be like kind of haunted house, kind of like weird town vibes maybe, and then there's like some family stuff. That's not very descriptive, but I honestly have no idea where I picked up this recommendation. I think I must have got it from Kayla. It was a recent addition to my TBR, so it feels like it must have come from Kayla, but I truly don't know. I'm gonna have to start tagging books on my TBR with like booktubers I get recommendations from so I can remember. Anyways, so that's what I'll be reading. Yeah, oh my god, this clip is so long. I need to go because editing this is gonna be a nightmare. Greetings, it is September 22nd and I somehow managed to actually make it to the end of the vlog. I have finished a book. I finished listening to Scoundrel, How a Convicted Murderer Persuaded the Woman Who Loved Him, the Conservative Establishment, and the Courts to Set Him Free by Sarah Weinman. This was 3 stars. I just don't think Sarah Weinman writes the type of nonfiction I enjoy. I just kept wanting more depth, I guess, and I found a 3-star review on Goodreads by a person named Sophia that I just wanted to read to you because I feel like they had summed it up better than I could, and it really kind of hits all the points that I would hit. Scoundrel by Sarah Weinman, while an interesting, if slightly basic read on the crimes of Edgar Smith and his ability to manipulate William F. Buckley Jr. and Sophie Wilkins, and through them the courts. However, I had 2 major problems with this book. One was that this book was described and promoted as the incredible and odd relationship between the 3 individuals mentioned above. I felt like Weinman focused so intently on Edgar Smith and his crimes that the book seemed more about the crimes of Edgar Smith and less about the way that all these people somehow connected to one another despite their superficial differences. I was frustrated that though Weinman mentioned briefly the ways that race, politics, class, and gender played into the relationship of the trio, she completely neglected to examine that, which led to a second major problem I had with the book. It was simply a compilation of evidence and less of a story. There was no examination of how Edgar Smith's ability, as stated by him, being a white middle-class attractive man, was able to cheat the courts during a time when questions were being raised about the false imprisonment of people of color. Weinman focused so heavily on Edgar Smith that the greater socio-political context of the time period truly got lost, and I was left with another story of a white man who, through benefiting from his crimes and manipulation, was able to worm his way out of prison. Again, this is an interesting read, but presented both no new perspective and no examination or discussion of really anything. And that's really it. I wanted some sort of like examination of society, of something. I felt like there was stuff there, but instead it just ended up being like a compilation of prison letters and just hearing these letters back and forth between these people, and it just did not work for me. So I've like now read both of Sarah Weinman's big books, like actual books. I think the rest of them are all like short stories or like introductions to books. I don't think she has any more like standalone novels. Well, not novels, standalone books. And I didn't really like either of them, so I don't think I'll be picking up any more Sarah Weinman books. I don't think. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. And with that, that is the close of my vlog. I have read 4 books this week, and every single one of them was 3 stars. Let's see. I guess Capitalist Realism was my favorite because that had the most to talk about. Like, I had a lot to say about it. My least favorite was The Gathering Dark. And that is that. Next week will be the last week of Bookopoly / September. Again, I'm not going to roll after this book because I am enjoying the books I'm reading right now. Well, I'm enjoying The Long Walk, so I would like to keep reading that. I might start some sort of audiobook, but I'm not going to roll for it. There will probably be a roll when I finish Adverbs. So that is that. I will talk to y'all next week. Bye!